forget, our learning target is I can relate angles and fractional parts of a circle. So we're going to be applying some knowledge that we already know about fractions and also learning some new words and vocabulary so that we can add on to what we already know. Right now, if you would, you might need to pause the video, but you need to find a piece of paper or something to jot some notes down on so that you can reference it when you have to do your assignment on your own. Our first vocabulary word that we're going to need to learn is clockwise. So clockwise means moves like a clock. So if I think of this kind of like a clock, and this being my 12 at the top, clockwise means it moves in the direction that a clock would. So kind of like to the right in the direction that a clock would move. So if I'm starting here and moving around a clock, it could also start here or somewhere else. No matter where it starts, I'm moving the direction that a clock would go. Your next vocabulary word you're going to need is counterclockwise. This part of the word counter means the opposite or against. So if I'm moving the opposite of clockwise or against clockwise, I would be moving to the left. So counterclockwise, just like the clockwise, I can start here or anywhere on this circle, no matter where I start. But if I am moving in this direction or the opposite way that a clock would move, I am moving counterclockwise. Make sure you have those written down somewhere, maybe with a little picture, so that you can use these vocabulary words. Now that we've kind of talked about how we're going to be moving within that circle, let's take a moment to talk about fractions. So I know you already know about fractions. We're going to be using fractions in fourths today. So our denominator, our parts, are going to be in fourths. I made this little example so that I could think in my brain about how big a fourth of a circle is. So each one of these colored pieces is a fourth of a circle. If I start here at the top, remember, no matter where I do it, this is still a fourth of a circle. If I move within this orange piece, it's 1/4. Now, if I moved 2/4, if I started here and moved to here, that would be 2/4, or remember, that's the same as 1/2 of the circle. I can do that in any direction. I can start here and move up here, or I can start at the top and move to the bottom. But if I move half of that circle, my fractional part is half. The direction I'm moving, if I move here like this, would be clockwise. If I started here and moved up to the top, it would be counterclockwise. I did these different colors because I wanted you to see when I move from here all the way to here, no matter which direction I'm moving, if I take up this much of a circle, that would be 3/4. If I moved around the whole circle, it would be 4/4, or the same as 1/2. You're going to need to kind of remember and hold in your brain what each of these parts looks like, because it's not always going to be labeled for each fourth when you have your assignment on your own. All right, now that we've talked about how we're moving within that circle and the fractional parts that we're going to be using, let's do some practice before you have a little matching activity and an assignment to do on your own. So if I gave you a circle that looked like this, I know it's not the most perfect circle, pretend like it is. And if I started where my arrow starts and I moved around in this direction to where it's going, I have to think, is that clockwise or counterclockwise? I also need to think of my fractional parts, or how much of this circle is that arrow taking up? Is it 1/4, 1/2, 3/4, or 1 turn? This one is a 3/4 turn counterclockwise. So I'm moving 3/4 of the way around the circle, and I'm moving in a counterclockwise direction, or the opposite way that a clock moves. If I have this visual, I have to think again, what is my fractional part of that circle, and what direction am I moving within that circle? So you might need to reference your notes, think about it, how much of it is that turn, And am I moving in a clockwise or counterclockwise direction? This one is a 1/4 turn in a clockwise direction. Here's our next practice example. So again, I'm always thinking of those fractional parts and the direction that it's moving. Think of 1/4, 1/2, 3/4, or 1 full turn. And then whether it is a clockwise or counterclockwise direction. This one is a 1/2 turn in a counterclockwise direction. Let's do one more here. So I did try and trick you on this one because this is a repeat. We've had this fractional part before, but this one looks a little different. Instead of starting at the top and moving to the bottom, I'm starting at one side and moving to the other. Remember, no matter where I start, I still can move in either a clockwise or counterclockwise direction. This one is a 1/2 turn clockwise. So I'm moving the direction of a clock and I'm taking up half of that circle.